Welcome back to Your Average Witch, where every Tuesday we talk about witch life, witch stories, and sometimes a little witchcraft. Your Average Witch is brought to you by Clever Kim's Curios. This week I'm talking to Amber of Amber Energy Services. Amber talks to us about the simplicity and power of witchcraft, why we should be nicer to new witches, and why she doesn't want to hear spirits. Before we get started, I want to remind you about my newest venture, Crepuscular Conjuration. There you'll find the entire Your Average Witch library, including show notes and links. I also moved my shop, Clever Kim's Curios, full of wonderfully witchy wares, over to it. Finally, there's the subscription service. You'll find great digital content like podcast bonuses, guided meditations, coloring pages, and more. Plus my sought-after limited number B boxes. Monthly spell boxes full of fun, both magical and mundane. There's even a membership section where you can try out a variety of digital offerings for free. Make sure you visit crepuscularconjuration.com today. Now let's get to the stories. Hi Amber, welcome to the show.
Hi Kim, I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thank you. Really, the sun's out today, so I have gardening in my future later today, so I am really good.
Nice.
Yeah.
We're going from freezing, literally freezing, below freezing on Tuesday, and I think tomorrow it's supposed to be in the 90s, so gardening should be fun this year here.
I would say so. Wow.
Kind of mad about it. Would you please tell everybody who you are and what you do and where they can find you on the internet?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Amber Chaplin, and I am a professional astrologer and tarot reader. You can find me on the World Wide Web at, I guess I'll start with Instagram, which is at amberenergyservices.com, or at the Pisces Perspective podcast. And then my website is amberenergyservices.com. So you can hit me up on there if you want to connect with me for any reason. And yeah, currently I offer astrology readings, tarot readings. I am going to be coming out with an astrology, learn astrology course shortly. And hopefully I have some other projects simmering, but I'm not going to talk about them yet because I definitely got in a bad habit last year of announcing projects when they were in my head before they came to actual fruition. But yeah, hopefully I'm going to be offering more soon. And yeah, that's where you can find me and hear all about it.
I relate to that. That's why I stopped saying any plans, because a lot of things happen in my head.
Oh, it's the Aries popping off. My Aries midheaven. So that's how I handle it. My career. Yeah, I can relate to that. And you have Aries in your chart too, right?
Yes.
I think you mentioned, yeah.
Many Aries and Geminis. I forgot what we were doing for a moment.
Speaking of Gemini.
What does it mean to you when you call yourself a witch?
I think that it's just, what it means to me is it's just who I am. What I love about the word witch is I actually feel like while a lot of people who don't understand what that word means think of it as a label. And to me, it's almost freedom from labels. And so for me, I think the word witch from a very young age just meant doing exactly what I wanted to do and being authentic to myself.
Being a do what you want to do sort of person. Yeah. That's one of my favorite definitions so far.
Oh yeah, I can't deny it. Anymore, I should say.
Do you have any family history with witchcraft? And even if your family would say absolutely not, but they still do witchy crap at home.
Well, I actually have a pretty interesting answered that question, I guess. So my grandmother was adopted into a family that wasn't a very nice family. And her stepsister practiced witchcraft. but definitely practiced it in a way that was malicious or ill intent. Um, not very love and light, I guess. So her experience with it, my grandmother it was something to be afraid of, or it was something that you use to cause pain or get even, that kind of stuff. So when my mother was growing up, and she had an incredibly traumatic childhood as well, this aunt terrified her. And so then, of course, her association with that word witch became, again, it was something very feared. And then my parents ended up, just after I was born, becoming Baptist Christians. So growing up, like in my early childhood, like the word witch was like a terrible word. And anything to do with the metaphysical was like straight from the devil, yada, yada, yada. I roll. But now, with the journey that I've been on, and, it's very interesting to reflect on where my parents and I are on this subject now, because we have experienced such growth together, on this subject. Like, it took years and years and years, I think, of them seeing me practice and starting to see this thing that was so feared, like in a different light for them. And now my mother's a total witch. Like she does tarot, oracle cards. She's into all of it. Witch is still a trigger word for her, like witchcraft, witch. So when we're together, we just refer to it as woohoo. Um, just because it's just less triggering for her, just because of things in her past. But my parents now are so incredibly supportive of my faith and like spirituality and my path with this, and they're like my biggest cheerleaders. So it's kind of a nice story of how it was something that was, really, really taboo and looked at as very harmful, and now within my family it's not, thankfully.
Yay.
Yeah.
Huh. That's me thinking. Not
Right,
out
I
loud
know.
at all. Can you introduce us to your practice? Like, do you have any regular or consistent rituals that you'll share?
Oh, I'd love to say yes. But like, I would so love to say yes to that question. Um, I'd say I can be my faith is always there. I'm always connected. My level of connection, I think, varies. Giving, as I'm sure it is with all of us, what's going on in your life at that moment. Like, how busy are you? How many projects have you committed yourself to that maybe you didn't have the time for? That
Let's
kind
not talk about that part.
of thing, right? My partner, if I start any sentence with "I have an idea," he's just like, "No." But, I would say the most regular thing actually is something that I do with my partner, and we actually started this at the beginning of our relationship as a way to just connect, because we didn't get to see each other. We just had really weird hours that we were working, so we didn't really get like quality time, or we'd see each other like midnight. So we both started pulling an oracle card before bed, um, and just sharing with how we thought, like how it resonated with each of us and what themes maybe we thought it was bringing up for us and that kind of stuff. And I would say that's probably my most regular, consistent ritual, like on the daily. But connecting to nature, I do believe just walking barefoot in the grass is witchcraft, um, or can be a ritual. So like I try to do like those small things every day, whether it be throw some crystals in the bath or, walk barefoot outside when weather permits, or things like that. But like actual spell work, or I guess anything m- more layered, I do when I feel like the need really arises. I wish I used to do, there was a period of time where I did spell work, like, oh my God, it was like every week. And I was just like buzzing. It was lit, but it was also exhausting. So I try to moderate, well, not moderate, but balance, I think is a good word. My spell work to make sure that I'm not expending too much energy on it, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. I have phases where I do, and then phases where I am like, I can't even light a candle today because I just don't feel like it.
Exactly, right? Because you are spending energy. Well, I guess there's different types of witchcraft too. There's energy that you put out, and then there's, practices and rituals you can do that are purely receiving as well. And I think like there's such an emphasis sometimes on the practices where it's like outputting energy as opposed to maybe like receiving what we need in that day and that just being okay.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that witchcraft has changed your life?
Oh, yes, absolutely. But I've just such, I've just always identified as a witch. So I don't really have like a moment, I guess, where I'm like, oh, and then I realized, or like, then I felt connected. Like it was always there. So it absolutely has run my life. But, and of course changed it in many ways, but I don't really have like a aha moment, if you will.
But I think that yeah, I should rephrase that question.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was a short answer,
No,
was it?
that is because I almost said, but I didn't want to interrupt you because I'm an interrupter. Or I was thinking, or is it just your life and there's nothing to change because that's just the way your life is, but it's because you're a witch.
Yeah, no,
Maybe
exactly.
the impact.
I'm an
Maybe that's the
interrupter
word I
too.
want.
I feel you on that. I'm always like, I have to consciously not interrupt people. It's a problem for me.
What would you say is the biggest motivator in your practice?
I think the feeling of, this might sound a bit weird, but the feeling of control. There's so much in the world, pardon me, that, well, everything's beyond our control except ourselves and what we are choosing to receive and what we're choosing to give. So for me, witchcraft is, and I'm somebody who does struggle at times with anxiety, and I have PTSD. So for me, it gives me security. It always makes me feel better. I never feel worse. It's kind of like it's like working out sometimes where I'm like, oh, like, I don't know, like if I'm in the mood, but then I know at the end, I've never not felt better. So I think that is my biggest motivator, is just this feeling of security or nourishment or power, but in a good way, like not like power over others, but more so power over oneself. Because you do have to be really self-aware um, when you practice. So I think for me, it's that feeling of peace and security that is my biggest motivator.
I am a control freak.
Me too.
And I relate.
Right? I struggle on the daily.
Yes. Do you ever have doubt in your craft or yourself? Do you ever feel like you would it say you have imposter syndrome? And if you do, what do you do about it?
Well, every damn day. I would say that I feel that. I'm a Leo moon, so I fake it till I make it. So I will, and I guess I've always been kind of, I try to override insecurity or like override nerves or it when I first started my astrology business, it was like such a dream come true. Um, but also such a struggle because I had never really um worked in a one-to-one capacity with people that way. Like I used to sell cars, so I did work one-to-one with people, but obviously that's like financial, not emotional. Um and I would just I am a stress sweater. And I remember like I would have to change my shirt consistently after doing consultations because I would be so amazed that somebody was paying me to do this and trusted me with their like to be vulnerable with me or to for me to hold that space for them. Like what an honor, right? Like so fucking cool. But like, oh my God, I would just die every like before every single one. Now, because I've been doing it for longer, like I think I've been doing this for 3.5 years professionally. Um, I'm more, it's like working a muscle. It's just it's easier, you're warmed up. But I still get nervous before every single reading. I'm still meeting a person that, again, is like entrusting me with so much, that is invested in me and my services. And that's like a big responsibility, I think, or I feel. So I guess my answer is like all the time. And sometimes when clients email me and they let me know like how their reading resonated or how it helped them, like I am still shocked every time. Every time. Not that astrology helped them. I have like the utmost belief in astrology. It's not the tool. Um, it's just, I guess sometimes I'm just like, oh wow, that's crazy. That somebody would trust me so wholeheartedly. Not that they shouldn't, but I just mean it's
But they
mind-boggling.
do.
Yeah, it's just mind-boggling to me every day, and I'm so appreciative of people that I work with. So imposter syndrome all the time. I just try to push through it and like seem that I'm not feeling that way. But underneath on the daily, you can absolutely rest assured, I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing.
Me too.
Right?
This might be the same thing again, but what would you say is the biggest struggle your biggest struggle when it comes to your practice?
Imposter syndrome actually is like definitely can crop up there. I've seen um like I spell work is kind of like my thing, like I guess the something I practice more often, or I do I was more drawn to. um and if there's one thing that I have noted through that is that if you don't believe in what you are doing and yourself and the spell that you're crafting, it will not work. Or at least in my experience, right? Because I'm just reflecting on my own experience here. It might be completely different for other people, but um so I really try to believe in myself when I am practicing. And sometimes that can be a struggle. Um, a lot, really depending on, obviously, I guess personally what I might be feeling that day, or maybe what I'm working on. But yeah, I would say actually that imposter syndrome is probably the thing that I struggle with the most, and or on the daily when it comes to my practice, for sure.
What brings you the most joy?
It's so cool.
Yes.
It's so cool. Like I I just think it is so much fun to do witchcraft, and it just makes me happy. Like it it is so much fun, and my favorite thing about it is it's so simple. Like, you don't need anything fancy to do it. You literally can do it in your garden, you can do it in your kitchen, you can do it in your bath. Like, there's so many ways to practice, and I just think I get a kick out of that a lot. It makes me really happy.
But also you can make it fancy if you want to.
Oh, yes, and trust me, Leo Moon over here. There are times it is unbelievably extra.
Would you say you are fearful about anything
Oh, for
to
sure.
do with witchcraft?
Yeah, I would love to do more spirit work, like that or ancestral work. That is something that I know several sisters who like are it's amazing like the insights they get and just the connection and the joy that they get from it. And I think like I'd really like to be able to do that, but also I don't want people talking to me when I'm not in the mood, you know? Like
Yes, I do.
like, I'm just like, so if I open that portal, does that mean I am now like just always available? I I don't know how I feel about that. That would drive me crazy. So there's definitely some like maybe one day. I don't think I'm ready yet. But one day I'd love to get and learn more about that. But I definitely have some fear tied up in that of just like, okay, I know you're here, but like I don't need to hear or see you right now. Like just your general quiet presence is acceptable and fine. Um, but one thing that was really interesting though when my daughter was born, or since she's been born, the I can feel spirits coming to visit her, and I can tell their ancestors. I can kind of feel them, and it's really cool. But at times I've just been like, okay, guys, this is like way too much. Can you please leave for today? Like
It's nap time.
yeah, I know you're having fun with the baby. I get it. She's adorable. You're wigging me out. Like you gotta go. Coming out in a few days. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's what I would say my biggest fear is.
I'm envious when people tell stories about how they interact with beings.
Mhm. Oh, me too. Me too. Like, it just sounds so cool,
Yes.
right? Like, I'm just, like, sick, but, like, also, I don't
Don't
know.
slide into my DMs, bro.
Yeah, I don't answer my DMs, so, like, just yeah, we're working on it. We'll get there
We
one
can
day,
put the phone down. My brain's on all the time.
right? I have enough. Multiple personalities in my head keep me busy, thanks. Like
Is there anything that you used to do early on that you don't do anymore, and why don't you do it?
I used to be really, like, by the I don't know if by the book is maybe right way to put it because I mean, what is the book? But I was really caught up in doing witchcraft properly for a long time when I was younger, like late teens, early 20s, because I thought, well, that makes it more effective, or it won't work if you don't do it on the right day and the right phase of the moon, and have the right rune inscribed in your candle and like all these kinds of things. Whereas I just I guess the more I've grown in my practice, the more I've realized that like you just do what you can, and you do like there's no, even if the connection is small, it doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile, if that makes any sense.
Hmm. I do feel like actually starting out anything, we're always pretty how I want to make sure I'm following all the rules.
Yeah, right? Like maybe that imposter syndrome kicks in. You're like, who's gonna like look at this and be like, oh my God, she did that on a Wednesday. You're supposed to do Venus
Yeah.
on Friday.
What a dumb girl she is.
Right? Like, it's just like, oh God. But
We're reporting you to the witchcraft police.
right? Like, who cares? Like, who cares? And the people that care, I feel like, or that would ever criticize someone for not doing something in what they feel maybe is the right way, that really stems out of their own insecurity around their own practice and doesn't really have anything to do with you.
You used a green candle.
I love it.
Do you have a favorite tool in your practice? It does not have to be a physical object.
I go hard with the candles. Like, it's just such a quick and easy way to practice, I guess. Or like for me, I really enjoy candle magic. So I would say I have a lot of candles in numerous, like every color and size. And candle supplies down in the basement. And, you know, like if my husband sees any more candles enter this house, yeah, might get burnt. So candles for sure.
What is something you wished was discussed more in the witch community? Or is there anything?
That's a really interesting question, because I don't think, aside from like the bean can, I'm not really involved in any group or I guess like, and by bean can, sorry, I mean the Witch Bitch Amateur Hour group on Facebook. Like, I work and connect a lot with sisters individually. So I guess it's kind of a difficult question for me to answer in some ways, but I guess the one thing that sometimes I think, like, I wish it was talked about a little bit more again, is just there's no right or wrong. We're all just different. And I think that sometimes people can get quite precious in their witchcraft or their practice and can get a little bit self-righteous in that preciousness at times. And that I don't really appreciate when I encounter that kind of energy, just because I'm a very live and let live kind of person. And I don't, I guess, react very well with people that not disagree with me, because I'm perfectly okay with people disagreeing with me, and I believe that that's healthy, and you know, you need to be comfortable with people disagreeing with you. But I guess just that kind of like lack maybe of understanding of what it's like when you do first, I mean, enter the realm like of this metaphysical community and world. And you know, maybe somebody didn't run out and 100% ethically source their sage. They'll learn. Like, I feel like we can be really hard on people that are new, and it's so much, it's so overwhelming. There's so much to learn. Like, it's what's one of my favorite things about it is you're never going to stop learning. So I love that about astrology as well. Like, it's a continuous study. It's but yeah, I just think that we need to just maybe be a little bit gentler in that area, if that makes sense.
It does. That is also why I don't try to learn astrology, because that's too much.
Oh, yeah.
For me, I have so many other things I'm trying to learn. And I can just give somebody money and then they'll tell me astrology things.
I love paying people to tell me like things that I don't know.
Yeah, I don't do tarot. I don't do divination. I give people money to tell me things.
Yeah, well, that's it, right? Like, I love Reiki, but I'm not I have no interest in learning how to do it myself. It's not my thing, right? Like, it's just not my thing. So I will go see someone for that 100% take the money.
If you could only recommend one book to a new practitioner, what would it be?
Witch by Lisa Lister. I think that she did an amazing job in that book, just covering, like, if you didn't know anything, she covers a lot in that book in a really personal, easy to understand, non-pretentious way. And so I 10 out of 10 recommend that book.
Now you were in another country from me. So I'm even more interested in your response to this question. Would you say environment shaped your practice at all? And how do you think it would be different if you lived somewhere else? Like, I live in Arizona in the friggin' desert.
I want to go to Arizona so bad. I can't even tell you.
Come here.
I'm like low key. I'm like, Arizona, Texas. Like, I need to go. It's happening at some point.
We have worms.
I know. You've got it's so beautiful. So I drool over photos on the internet all the time. But I think that's a really important question. Because obviously, for example, I mean, if I lived in the States right now with the war against women, I would be fucking terrified.
We are.
I'm not trying to like bash the country. It's not that, but I'm just like, holy hell, why have we not banned guns, but we're banning abortions? I understand. Obviously, I don't understand how politics work necessarily in other countries. I struggle to understand my own as well.
Right.
We're not perfect over here. But I think that living in Canada, we've always been very, up until this point, about freedom of speech. Canada is very welcoming in its tone, I think, to people, like, all different types of cultures. I mean, we're not perfect. We still have racism here. We still have all the horrible things, but we are pretty multicultural, at least where I live. I'm about an hour out of Toronto. And I think so, like, just growing up in Canada, there is this, like, you are taught to be open and more tolerant with people, I think. And that's been really great. Although we did just have a internet censorship bill get passed without a vote.
What?
Yeah. That when I said I didn't understand how politics work here, sometimes I don't. They're like, the opposing party's fighting it right now, but to me that was pretty terrifying. I'm like, oh, okay, so you're censoring what we're allowed to read on the internet. That is, very unlike the Canada that I know, or that I believe in. But we're like, I think I've been really fortunate to grow up here. And I mean, the town I live in, my hometown, like, I've moved.
Whoa.
Yeah, I've moved a lot in my life. Like, I've lived many, many other places. I've lived in Australia twice. Yeah, in my life, 2 different times. I've lived in Newfoundland, which is an island. It's a province of Canada, but it's like an island, which is across the country. Like, I've lived there. I've lived in Toronto. But I am an hour out of Toronto in my hometown. And I have to say, we have a pretty awesome metaphysical awareness here. Like, there's lots of markets. We have an amazing metaphysical shop in town, Healing Moon, that just, everyone in the community, whether they're into metaphysical or not, like, knows the store, will go in, that kind of thing. So I'm really fortunate that I live where I live. And I think that absolutely, if I even made a move to the States, for example, would I be more private? I think so. I would feel more like, I guess, Um,
Less safe, probably.
yeah, just less safe. Like, I'm more likely to be attacked as a woman. I don't know. Like, not that, I mean, I love the States. Like, I've traveled there many times as well. I had like South Carolina, Florida, New York, Virginia, lots of places. And I love you guys. But yeah, I definitely would be acting with, I guess, a little bit more caution.
Oh, it's scary to be here.
Yeah, like Jesus Christ.
How do you pull yourself out of a magical slump?
Hmm. That's a good question. I think for me personally, when I get into slumps, it's because I'm being straight up lazy. Like, I just get tired and I'm like, like, I don't want to just, human nature. I don't want to do anything that I know is going to make me feel better. Like, I would much rather, drink a glass of wine or, have some ice cream or like just, I find that I get lazy and then I turn to shortcut um things to make me feel better, whereas actually what always grounds me the most and what always makes me feel better is coming back to my practice. But definitely, like, when I get tired, I just get lazy and I let that go. So usually I give myself a stern talking to, I guess, like a scolding. And then I I know it is, I am not saying this is healthy or like people that should, copy this, but like, again, I go back to the fake it till I make it. Like, I will literally force myself to do just a small thing. And then once you've done the first thing, suddenly you're like, "Oh yeah, I love this shit." Like, and I start doing it then more and more often. But there are definitely moments where I am like, "Okay, girl, like, that's enough with the numbing. Like, go and sort out your stuff." Type of thing.
I do feel lucky that it's so easy to just light a candle.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just even the littlest thing. It's just like, okay, oh my God, if I can walk to the freezer and get ice cream, I can light a candle.
Actually, let me say it differently. It's low effort. Because
Yes,
sometimes it's not easy, but it is the low effort thing.
exactly. Right. Because sometimes it's the idea of it that is more challenging,
Yeah.
right? And the actual act. And we can get, I mean, like I said, I do sometimes struggle with anxiety, and anxiety is a very future focused way of
Mhm.
thinking, because I believe kind of anxiety lies in the future, depression lies in the past. So just the thought of things sometimes for me can be so much more exhausting
Mhm.
actually just going and doing it. So sometimes, like, the thing I'll say this to myself is like, okay, like, you're just living it twice. If you're gonna sit here and like be stressed about it, but you are still gonna do it, and then you're gonna be stressed all, your walk upstairs to go do it, and like you're just ruining it anyways. So like just go do it.
Huh.
Not saying it will work for everyone, but that's how I bully myself into doing things.
Do you ever work with other witches?
Yes, I love collaborating. Like I mentioned before, it's just the way that it has happened for me has been more so on like connecting with individuals, but um I work often with a very good friend of mine, Megs Emerson, and she actually was a big influence in really deepening my practice. When I've known Megs, I guess, for like 7 or 8 years now. And I remember when I met her, I was like, I need to know this witch. Like, who is this? And we became great friends, and she's really helped deepen my practice. So she's like a Reiki healer, life coach. She does energy work, past life regressions, that kind of thing. Like, she does all the things that basically I'm too afraid to do. We're very different. We balance each other out. So we collaborate a lot. And I love the internet. I love the gateways that the internet has given us in terms of connection. Like, I think it's so cool to talk to people from different places and hear about their experience or how things might be different for them. I'm a sun in the ninth house person, so that's kind of like, that's what like really gets me off. It's just like, tell me about how it was for you. Like, it's, I love that stuff. So yes, I guess is the short answer. Yes, I do.
That's so neat. I agree. I
Right?
am, yeah. Most of the people I talk to on a regular basis live in several other states.
Yeah. And that's it. Like, it's so amazing that we have this ability to connect with each other this way. And it's even, for people that maybe aren't in places where it's as accepted, or you're not limited to your geographical location, which could be really isolating, or I'm sure for many people has been really isolating in the past. Like, we are so fortunate to be able to like see each other this way.
Literally. One thing I love about Marco Polo is that we actually get to tone actually transfers because we're speaking with our mouths and they can see our expression and they can see our body language and hear the tone in our voice, which is a problem on Facebook, for example.
Hmm.
Sarcasm shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it also gives people who are in the Bible Belt or closeted, I'm talking about Marcos Polo specifically,
Hmm.
who are closeted to actually have more personal feeling interactions.
Yeah. Well, you know, we just came through this Saturn in Aquarius the past 3 years transit, and it obviously everything that happened all across the world moved us even more so onto the internet, right? Like,
Yes.
like everything moved onto the internet. Super grateful that we had that option. I can imagine how isolating it would have been going through the past 3 years without it. I do think, though, that hand in hand with that, what needs to maybe be healed on that platform is like, it is so easy to be passive aggressive on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Keyboard warriors, or just to be condescending. It's just so easy. And it's, you don't have to deal with any of the consequences. Even you don't have to
Yeah.
read replies. Like, so yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But also I always try, because look, I get riled up too. I am a fireman sign. I sometimes, and I'll just be like, oh, like, let me at it. But it's harnessing, I think, a lot of the time. It's so easy to just blow off on the internet. Like, I mean, I've done it in my past. I'm not perfect, like, at all. But where can you direct that energy that is actually going to turn into something fruitful? Like, go do a spell. Like, if you're that angry, or like go for a run, or go for a hike, or I don't know. Like, I just think it's such a double-edged sword.
So don't sit there in front of your keyboard and just let it eat away at you inside like I do. Don't
Yeah.
do that.
If I did that, I would combust. Okay. I
Maybe that's why I have hot flashes.
Mhm. Yeah, like, oh, yeah, tell me about it. I'm postpartum right now still, and like the hot flashes.
No, so many
Oh,
hormones.
it can't, like, and a lot of our anxiety comes from the internet now, right? Like, things that happen.
So much.
You know what the funniest thing was? Actually, it happened a few days ago. I have a bunch of seventh house stuff closing up in my chart with these transits that are going happening. So lots of loose ends kind of getting tied up. And there was a friend, I've been friends with her a really, really long time. Don't really know, one of those situations where I don't really know why the friendship ended. It's kind of a mystery. Blah, blah, blah. But finally, I unfriended her on Facebook because I was like, dude, you unfriended me in real life. Like, it, but for some reason, the reaction to Facebook is like, whoa,
That's strange.
you unfriended me on Facebook, or like, whoa, you unfriended there. And I feel like that's become like kind of a thing where I'm like, yeah, but like, is there a real relationship there? Like,
That's super weird.
right?
That
And
we're
I
like, "On Facebook, that makes it real," but not the
yeah,
real life argument, the Facebook thing. Holy
right?
crap, we are insane.
We are like, even I got caught up. I was like, "Oh, should I unfriend her on Facebook?" Like, "Oh, such a big statement." And then I was like, "What? What am I thinking? Why am I thinking this way?"
Oh my god, we are insane. What?
Mhm.
Oh, I'm angry at myself now. And humanity, how dare why are we like this?
Why are we like this?
Who or what would you say are the 3 biggest influences on your practice?
Hmm. My friend Meg's for sure. She's just taught me so much, and she does it in such a she holds space for people so well. Um, and she's a really good listener, which I am not. And so she definitely has taught me a lot within my practice of really being, especially around being like comfortable with myself. I'm okay as I am. Actually better than okay. Like you're right, exactly right, just as you are. Um, and she's one of the most respectful human beings I've ever met. Like she is so considerate beyond like even considerations that I would even think about like I wouldn't even cross my mind. Like she is so considerate. She actually married my husband and I this past February. She did a hand fasting at our wedding, and so that was really special. So she's definitely been a big influence. Um, you know what? I'll give a shout out to Macy. Um,
Mhm, me too.
yeah, shout out to Macy. I think her and I practice somewhat similarly from what I've heard her discuss. Or we tend to practice in similar ways is what I mean. Like the actual things that we're doing. Um, she spends a lot of time out in the garden. So do I. And she really well, her and Charlie both with like, it's okay to do bite-sized witchcraft. Like, if it's stirring your tea in the morning. Um, I feel like Charlie would definitely say something in the kitchen and like Macy would say something outside. But the idea that these small things are also great. Uh, and I really admire Macy has this talent of um, how do I describe it? She can tell you why she doesn't agree with something and what she doesn't like about something without sounding offensive, like rude or um but with at the same time making her opinion very clear. And that's hard, I think, for me.
Mhm, me
uh,
too.
right? Like if I feel passionately about something, a lot gets lost in translation. Um I'll use too many words or I'll speak too loudly or I won't listen. Which, doesn't make you a good debater and makes it hard. Like, I think I'm misunderstood a lot of the time because of that. Whereas I really admire her ability to be incredibly firm, but incredibly clear and respectful at the same time. Um, and thirdly, uh, I really like an interview that I actually listened to you do on this podcast that really I got so much out of, and I have a lot of admiration for. That being said, for some reason I can't remember her first name, but Prairie Fire Herbal.
Penelope.
Penelope, thank you. I'm like, it's a P. I I loved that interview. And I love the content that she puts out there. And I love
Mhm.
like her product is
Chef's kiss.
crafted with such care. Like it empower. Um that I get so excited every time I open something from there. Like, it's so exciting. And so I really respect her as somebody that made her passion a business and a successful business. Um, and yeah, like she's very transparent. And I think I have a lot of admiration for that. Like it's hard. Like, there are some days I love I am always grateful, of course, to do what I do. There are some days that it's a lot harder than others. But I feel like, is just very inspiring in the way that while she's consistent, like her content is consistent, even if it's not perfect. And like that, I think, is something that she likes to talk about a lot. And I really respect that.
I loved talking to her.
Right? It was a really good interview.
I agree. She's great.
Mm-hmm.
That sounded pompous. I meant that she's great.
I didn't sound pompous.
Okay. I did such a good job talking to her.
No, you did. It was a great interview. You're very good at what you do.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Do you have any advice for new practitioners?
Trust yourself. I think that it can be really overwhelming when you do start to get in tune with your intuition, because it's emotional, and it can be really scary, I think, to like give it credence. But your gut is always right. And I think that if you really just trust yourself at the end of the day, and you know yourself, that is always going to be what's going to steer you in the right direction.
That's so nice sounding.
I hope so. Imposter syndrome's flaring up over here.
That's good advice.
Thanks.
Who would you like to see on the show? Who do you think I should ask to be on here?
My friend Megs. I think you'd love to. She's a Gemini, as well. And you both have these beautiful, calming, soothing voices. I think you get along really well.
Neat. Okay. Yeah, send me her email.
I will.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up, or any questions that you had for me?
Ooh, fun. Okay. Questions for you. I am like, you are so mysterious to me in some ways, because I like hear your voice all the time, but we're not talking about you. And I'm like, oh, so many questions. I would actually be really, really interested to know what your biggest struggle is when it comes to witchcraft, if you'd be open to talking about that for a sec.
I'm not prepared.
Sorry, not sorry.
I would imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Why in the world do people listen to this podcast? I mean, it's because of the other people.
No, my love, you're holding the space. It's your platform. You created it.
Okay, but that's what it's telling me. They're not actually here to listen to you. You're an idiot. You just happen to be their avenue.
I am here to tell you that imposter syndrome is wrong. You are fabulous.
I hope so. Also, I don't know anything, and I can't do magic. That's my struggle. All of those things.
Okay, that's a fair one.
How do I beat it? I don't.
How do we beat it? We don't know.
I pretend that I don't even pretend. I'll tell you straight out. I just told you.
You're very direct. I really like that about you. I value that in people.
Me too, because I don't understand when people are not doing that. I don't understand. I will believe lots of lies. I believe liars all the time.
Oh my God, I'm so gullible. I
Yep,
am
me too.
so gullible. It is like, it's known. It's a thing in my family and friends. It's just, I don't question what people tell me.
Yeah, I'm the really no person.
Yeah, for me, I have to know them. But yeah, they could be like, oh, and then this happened. And I'd be like, wow, well, why would you make that up? I mean, for sure.
One of my exes would constantly tell me just insane shit, and I would say, "Whoa, really?" No.
My
No, I
grandmother,
just made it up.
oh my God, my grandmother used to tell me really mean things. I still to this day think a snake is going to come out of the toilet and bite my ass while I'm on there. She told me that. She's like, if you go to the
I'm
woods and a
not gonna
snake,
tell you a story about that.
I know, I saw it on social, and like people need to put trigger warnings. I literally saw it a few days ago. It was like, what, python in Florida,
Oh, no,
something.
I'm in a personal actual happened to, my family and me.
Oh,
The only times I've been bitten by a snake is when I was handling a snake.
okay.
No wild animals have ever bitten me on the butt. Oh, that wasn't a wild animal. Anyway, it definitely wasn't a snake or on the toilet.
Oh my God. I'm really afraid of snakes, but in my defense, we don't have any poisonous snakes here. Like my husband gets really like, I'm so terrified of like garden snakes, which is all we have here. He makes fun of me all the time, but I'm always like, dude, I used to live in Australia.
Oh,
That shit
yeah.
will kill you there. Okay.
Everything will make you die.
Everything will kill you. And if that doesn't get you, the extreme heat will.
I was gonna say just the air.
Just being outside can kill you.
Mhm.
Uh, um, I do have the Learn Astrology course coming out soon. And by soon, I mean hopefully over the next month and a half. It's going to be a work at your own pace course, although I am thinking of also running a live course later this year. That's just too much of unfortunately, a commitment at this time. But that should be coming out, and I'm really excited about it. I've been working on it for a while, and I just want it to be a be very beginner friendly and translated into English kind of course. Like I don't want it to be intimidating. Like my goal with it is that it makes astrology approachable. Um, because I think a lot of the times astrology can be very unapproachable to
It's
people.
so arcane.
Right? Like it's just like, I get it. Like um and one of my favorite things about it is you never stop learning. But I want to offer like here, there's your core basics. You're now going to understand, how to look at your own chart, how to read your own chart to an extent. So yeah, so I'm really, really excited about that coming out. And that is all I'm going to talk about at this moment. So I up over committing myself.
And finally, at the end, I ask two things of my guests. The first thing being, would you please recommend something to the listeners? Anything at all?
Anything at all? Ooh.
Yep.
Oh my God. Okay. This is going to be a real dumb one, but I recommend watching Vanderpump Rules right now.
Oh,
Um,
really?
I am addicted. My sister-in-law got me into it like 2 months ago. I had never watched it. And she was like, you will like it because you like to study people. Like as an astrologer, I'm always studying people and their characteristics and trying to guess their signs. And so I went on like an astrology deep dive with this cast. And it was actually a lot of fun. And I literally watched 10 seasons in
Oh my gosh.
like 6 weeks. Yeah. And like I'm up to the current season. There's all this drama. And I'm going to be doing a podcast episode on my podcast about the astrology behind Vanderpump Rules.
Mm.
Yeah, because it's great. Like there's some real dynamic personalities there. And some trends. Like you can see definitely like there's a lot of Cancer suns in this group. So yeah, it's kind of fun piece of pop astrology that I'm focusing on. So if you haven't watched the show and you want some entertainment or like good background stuff, and like, yeah, I recommend Vanderpump Rules.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it is fun. That's all it's meant to be, but it is good fun.
The very last thing is I ask you to tell me a story.
Ooh. Um, I it's not too long. Can I tell you my birth story?
Tell me any story you want.
Okay, because it's a good one.
Yay.
Yeah. So my daughter showed up a month early. I was 8 months pregnant, and I I am literally that person that didn't know she was in labor. Like I didn't know my water broke. So I was like out in the garden, and look, when you're 8 months pregnant, sometimes you pee yourself. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, oh, well, whoops a daisy, at least I'm outside. Carry on. Was wearing a dress, not a big deal. Um, and I was really restless, and I was having what I thought was Braxton Hicks. Like, and I'd had them off and on for like the previous 6 weeks of my pregnancy, so I really didn't think anything of it. Um, and my husband got home from work, and he was like, "You okay?" And I'm sitting on a bouncy ball, bouncing up and down, sewing a wall hanging at like 10:30 at night. Like I was very restless. And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And then I had a big pepperoni pizza to myself. Went to bed. Woke up 8:30 in the morning. I was in like the last stage of labor. So I slept through the majority of my labor.
Wow.
Yeah. So I woke up and I was like, damn, these Braxton Hicks are getting like really painful. Like, because I have a really high pain tolerance. So it didn't occur to me it would be labor. And I wake my husband up and I'm like, you know what? Let's go for a walk. Yeah. Let's go
God.
for a walk. Yeah. So I'm like, in my mind, I guess I was like, if I walk to the end of the driveway and back, then I'm not in labor. Then it's Braxton Hicks. But if I can't get to the end of the driveway and back without having to stop because I'm in pain, well, this is probably labor. This is a stupid way to tell. Like, no one ever do that. Okay. But this is
How long is your driveway?
yeah, this is how my mind was working. And so I call my mom on the walk and I'm talking to her and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I'm like, oh, just one sec. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, you need to get off the phone. My mom lives in another province, so she's not like here. She's like, you need to get off the phone and call your midwife. That's a labor noise. Those animalistic sounds you're making. That's not normal. You need to call your midwife. So I call my midwife and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I might be in early labor. Like I don't want to have the baby today because it's too early. So like we'll just stop. If it's early labor, I'm sure it'll stop. Like I was really not having the baby that day. Like not. So I come in. She's like, early labor, they would advise you to get in the bath. They don't advise us this in late labor because it speeds things up.
Oh.
Yeah. So I hop into the bath, and within half an hour, my contractions are like 3 minutes apart. I am thrashing in the water like a fish.
Were you alarmed yet at this point?
That's when it started to turn for me. Was when I was like, this is.
I got alarmed basically as soon as you said you were in the garden.
But I was like adamant in my mind. I'm like, it's just too early. I haven't washed all of her
Absolutely
clothes.
not.
Virgo. I just don't know. Like, no. So now I should add that originally all along we had been planning to have the baby at home. And part of the reason that I did not want to have the baby that day was because with her coming a month early, I would have to go to the hospital. And so I don't feel very comfortable in hospitals. They're very anxiety inducing to me.
That's where sick people are. You're not sick. You're just having a baby.
I'm just having a baby, but they're just like my dad. He's had cancer most of my adult life. So there's like, I've been in and out of hospitals a lot. And so that for me was not where I wanted to have this experience. And although it's perfectly great to have your baby in a hospital, like no judgment either way. But for me personally, not great. So my midwife is an hour away, and my husband calls her and it's like, okay, like, I think you need to come actually. How soon can you get here? And so I get up, get out of the bath. Oh, the best part was while I was in the bath, I told my husband and his mother-in-law, I'm like, you need to move the dresser in the bedroom. Get it out of my sight. Get it downstairs. This is my marijuana dresser where I keep my stuff. And I like in my head was like, I am not giving birth in a room that has a marijuana dresser in it. I made them move it.
People in labor are so weird.
You're not like, yeah, like you get fixated on certain things and I cannot get that out of my sight. Like, you didn't ask why, he's just like, okay. Like, I get out of the bath, I fall to the floor, and I lose what's called your mucus plug, which means it's go time.
It's time.
It's time. And so I'm on the floor, and then it occurred to me, like, holy, I'm having a baby today.
Now.
Now. I'm literally having it now. Like, so they managed to get me up onto the bed. I don't remember, like, I was in a lot of pain this time, still thinking I had like 20 hours labor ahead of me, maybe though. Like, I'm like, no, it can't be this fast. It can't be this fast. And so I'll never forget the sweet sound of the midwife. Like, we have a gravel driveway.
Oh my gosh.
Her pull up, and I was just like, okay.
You can exhale for a minute.
Like, yeah, like a grown up is here. Like, like, so she comes up and she takes one look at me and she's like, okay, I have an ambulance on standby. I'm just going to check you. She points to the dresser, like we had this dresser and it had all this stuff in it. She has to lay out her tools. And she says to my husband, like, clear off that dresser. It was like a cartoon, when somebody just takes their arm and sweeps everything off and like, fuck it. Like, that is what happened. And I remember watching that being like, oh, love you. But she checked me and she looked at me and she's like, her head's right there. Like, we're having this baby right now. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, you're here to handle it. Great. At the next 20 minutes, honestly, were great. I didn't tear. It was absolutely amazing. We didn't end up having to go to the hospital because she was like 7 pounds, 6 ounces. All her vitals were healthy. And then by 1 p.m. that day, my husband and I were sitting in bed with our baby like, what the fuck? What just happened? So, yeah. So the moral of the story is babies come on their own time. And she ended up being a Leo. And when I saw her birth chart, I had obviously had forecasted several charts based around her due date. Like, I was so curious, but like when I looked at her birth chart for the first time, I was like, it all makes sense. This is exactly how it was supposed to be. So I guess the moral of the story with that is I was like so fixed on it happening a certain way. Obviously, like, I refused to believe I was in labor. But there's a reason we don't get what we want. And I'm really grateful I didn't, because it was a great experience and she's like exactly who she's supposed to be.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for such a good story.
Thank you. I like literally thank you for all that you do, and thank you for having me on here, because I was like fangirling when you contacted me.
What?
Yeah, dude.
So bizarre to me. And thank you for being on the show, and I will see you on Instagram, probably.
Oh yeah, we'll connect again soon, I'm sure.
Okay, bye.
Bye, Kim. Some sort of entity. I would hear it at night, and it would literally sound like it was walking down the hall, and my door would open, and it would be shut. I
Unacceptable.
was very afraid. Like, very afraid. And yeah, kind of violated, right? Like, hey, like, I didn't invite you in. But I think because of who I was living on top of, there was just a lot of stuff already there.
To hear more of the members-only episode, head over to crepuscularconjuration.com. The monthly magic tier will give you access to the monthly magic Marco Polo group, the private Facebook group, and access to the written monthly spells. There's also Crepuscular Conjurations, giving you bonus podcast episodes, coloring pages, guided meditations, spell crafting videos, printable downloads, and more. The free Witchy Wonderment level will give you a little sample of everything I just mentioned. You can also visit my shop, Clever Kim's Curios, to get spell boxes one at a time or by monthly subscription, intentional handcrafted jewelry that I make especially for witches, and handmade altar tools. You can even listen to the full Your Average Witch podcast library, including show notes. Check it out at crepuscularconjuration.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of Your Average Witch. You can find us all around the internet, on Instagram at Your Average Witch Podcast, Facebook at facebook.com/groups/hivehouse, at youraveragetwitch.com, and at your favorite podcast service. If you'd like to recommend someone for the podcast, like to be on it yourself, or if you'd like to advertise on the podcast, send an email to youraveragetwitchpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next Tuesday.